Hello and welcome to the Reviews Brothers. The first home console in my household was the NES, and it's a system that I still own and collect games for to this day. And what's amazing is that games are still being made for it to this day as well, some of which are actual retail releases you can buy, but as well as that, there's a pretty large homebrew community of developers that either make games for fun or for various other projects. This is something that I've never actually looked into until now. I heard there's some great homebrew games out there, so I took to the internet to find some. And there's a lot out there, and in this video, I've literally got the first 7 that I downloaded. Are they any good? Well, how about I shut up, you press that subscribe button, and we take a look at some games. First up is Alter Ego, which is an awesome puzzle platformer that's actually a homebrew port of a ZX Spectrum game, which itself is a more recent homebrew one, I believe. It's a simple single screen game where you play as a cute little bloke, and your only mission is to collect all the bouncing squares that are found on any level. These come in 2 colours, pink and green. But here's the catch, you have an alter ego, sort of. Basically what that means is there's an outline of your character that starts at the exact opposite part of the screen to you and does the opposite of all your movements. So if you move left, your alter ego moves right. If you go up, they go down, and so on. Also, the main guy can only collect the pink cubes and your alter ego gets the green ones. So, you guessed it, you need to figure out how to navigate these single screen levels and collect everything there. There are enemies and obstacles in the levels as well, and you'll need to make sure you avoid them, as if you touch a single thing you'll lose a life. Oh, and you can't jump, you can only move left, right and climb up and down ladders. But what you can do is press a button on the controller to switch positions with your alter ego, no matter where they are on the level. And as it's just an outline spirit sort of thing, your alter ego doesn't follow the rules of science like you do and can be positioned in pretty much any position. This is quickly used as one of the puzzle mechanics, as you'll need to swap positions to avoid enemies or get across large gaps and collect things that would otherwise be out of reach. It works really well and is a fun game mechanic, but be careful as you do actually have a limited number of times that you can switch position on any of your stages. This differs from level to level, so sometimes you have 3 or 4 swaps, other times you don't have any. It's actually really fun to figure out, and I never found that I got frustrated with the game. It's also possible to use up all of your moves and end up stuck. If you do this, you can pause the game to restart the level. You only get a few lives, but you will get further every time you play as you learn how to deal with the levels. Graphics wise, it's pretty basic, but it looks fine. The backgrounds change up every few levels, though there aren't many different enemies, basically just a skull. But actually I didn't really notice this while I was playing. The sound and music is also quite basic, but they do fit the aesthetic just fine. The controls are spot on though, they're very responsive and you really know that it's you that's messed up when you die and it's never the game's fault. Overall, I had a lot of fun with this one, and as the first ever NES Homebrew game that I've played, it really made me excited to check out what else is out there. Next up is Carpet Shark from Fista Productions. This is actually based on a short film of the same name from Fista Productions. You play as the soul of a shark that's been trapped inside a small rug, and you're hungry. It's your mission to eat as many people as you can before the timer or your health run out. Basically what happens is various people who are itching for an eating run across the screen randomly. You'll need to get to them and hit a button to jump out of the carpet and eat the poor bastards. There's no goal as to how many people you need to eat, instead your health just kind of acts as a secondary timer and depletes constantly, so you'll need to keep eating to keep it topped up. Sharks get hungry, you know. It's not easy though, you need to time your chomps well. You need to be facing your victims and not try and eat them too early or too late, otherwise you'll take a hit which stuns you for a few seconds, wasting valuable time. You'll actually quickly learn when you need to just ignore some of the victims depending on where they appear on the screen and to position yourself just right so you've got good access to the whole of your carpet tomb. If you manage to survive the level, then you've got a boss fight. These are the characters from the film apparently. They all play the same, which is a bit of a shame, but they get progressively harder. They will move left and right across the top of the screen and periodically throw things at you. You just have to try and eat the things they throw, which will knock it back at the boss, but you've got to get the timing just right or you'll miss them, or take damage. The bosses can be tricky, but the game here is surprisingly addictive. Thankfully you get unlimited continues as well, which is nice but does make the game a little too easy. Beat the boss and it's back to eating people again. The level backgrounds change up as you progress, and you get random things like skulls or knives that also appear on the screen for you to avoid. Some of these things can be eaten but don't give you health like eating people will, whereas the knives and things like that you just want to avoid entirely. People also seem to get a little faster as you progress. Then it's back to the bosses, but it's actually pretty fun. It's not very long, with just over 10 levels in total that don't take long at all to beat, but that's kind of perfect for a game like this really. It looks fine, again if a little basic, but you can't really fault homebrew games for that. The title screen and ending screens are great. Oh, and there are multiple endings depending on what your score is at the end, which is a really cool touch and adds a bit of replay value. The music is good, there's only 3 tracks, but the game isn't long enough for them to get annoying. And yep, the control is decent too. The hit detection sometimes feels a bit iffy, but never enough to bring the game down. This is another really fun game. It's got a good sense of humour, and you can even get a physical release, which I would actually really love, as the box art is amazing. I'll put a link in the description below. I'm not entirely sure if I'm allowed to put links to these games, but I'm going to anyway and see what happens. Either way, a quick Google search will easily help you find them too. Here is Desert Escape from Nicovision. This is a very simple single-screen platform game that's one of those games that very quickly becomes addictive. Not addicting, only idiots say addicting. It's addictive. Anyway, language pet peeves aside, this is a fun little game where you play as a little chap who's managed to get himself stuck in the bottom of a chasm in the desert because he's an idiot. I bet he says addicting. Luckily, there's an unlimited number of random blocks constantly falling from the sky. These are in various shapes and sizes, and you need to jump on them to reach the sparkly bar at the top of the screen, at which point I would say that you escape, but actually no, there is no escape here. It is an infinite hole created purely for high score survival fun. So basically you wait for the various blocks to fall and hopefully use them as a staircase to reach the top of the screen, at which point it resets. To help you out, you can also press the B button to drop a single square block directly above where you're standing at that point. But you only have 10 blocks that you can place and have to reach the top of the screen to replenish them. It sounds easy, but it's really not. In fact, I sucked really bad at this game, and even after playing for over an hour, I only got to level 3. There's a few reasons. Firstly, there's a time limit which can make things tricky as you don't have a lot of time to plan your moves, and actually the game doesn't even ever tell you how long you've got left, only when you have 10 seconds or less, which is annoying. Secondly, you can easily get crushed by the blocks. They fall quite fast and do speed up the further you get. There's times where you happen to be stood in the wrong spot, making it almost impossible to avoid getting crushed, but I guess that's kind of the point. You can also get trapped if the blocks make a little fort around you, and there's no way out. All you have to do is press the select button to kill yourself. And there's also dangerous blocks that will fall down, and these are basically cactuses, or is it cacti? Touch one of these at any point and it's game over. And lastly, there's tumbleweed, which doesn't kill you, but if it touches you, you'll get tangled up and you'll have no control over where you end up, often leading to an untimely death. To get around, you just move left and right, and you can jump. You can also do a super jump like in Mario 2 if you hold down for a few seconds. Then you'll start to flash, and when you jump, you go much higher. But you've got to be careful with this, as if you do anything other than jump when you've done this, you lose your high jump, and it actually makes it quite hard to use, as you'll always want to jump left or right. But if you press left or right before pressing the jump button, you won't do the high jump, and often pressing left or right just after you jump means you don't quite get the distance that you need and end up stuck. It's a bit of a double-edged ability. But still, the game is fun to play and really damn addictive, like I said earlier, and it really has that one more try feel to it. It looks decent enough with your standard NES look, and it's the same with the sound and music. There's not a lot there, but what is there is fine. You can also play this in 2-player co-op, which I can imagine would be really good fun, but cause a lot of arguments. Either way, this is a game that I do recommend checking out. Legends of Owlia from Gradual Games is a really fun action RPG that takes its inspirations from games like Zelda and Star Tropics, but also adds its own spin on things to make it much more than just a copycat. In a fantasy land, 6 great owls made the land imaginatively called Owlia. It was a funky place filled with nice stuff. Annoyingly, the king of the sea, Merman, who's a merman, decided that he wanted to conquer not just the underwater realms, but the nice green overground places as well. He managed to defeat 5 of the 6 owls and steal their power, but one escaped and set off to find someone to help. That's where the stupidly named Adlaniel comes in. And they were good at naming stuff in this game, weren't they? She's like an elf heroine lady who has a very convenient ability to talk to owls, and she even has their own pet owl who does everything with her. So basically the wise owl meets her and you've got to go save the land. The game plays like your typical action RPG. You explore an overworld where you'll meet people to talk to, find items and money, and of course fight enemies. You'll need to explore the various environments until you find the entrance to the underground dungeon where Merman has his toughest guardians who are the bosses. Defeat them and you'll rescue one of the owls and get its powers. Something I actually quite like though is that although it's an action RPG, it really has separate levels, so once you've beaten a boss you move to the next area automatically and you can't go back to explore the old levels, just the one that you're on at that time, but it does save any needless backtracking. As you explore, trying to find the dungeons, you'll fight a lot of enemies. These are all water creatures, from crabs and eels to starfish and octopuses. You attack with your sword, which does a fine job, though the range isn't great and I'd say it's really more of a knife. What is cool though is that you can use your owl friend to help you out in pretty much any situation as well. Your owl starts with two abilities, attack and collect. Attack obviously attacks enemies and is actually really good, and I tend to use this rather than the sword, and also I don't think your owl can take damage. Collect makes your owl collect items that are nearby and is used to get stuff just out of reach. There's also puzzles that require you to use the owl to go to otherwise unreachable places to pick up items or press switches, that sort of thing. As you beat bosses, you get more abilities, like being able to drop bombs. Again, the owl is sent out and you can drop bombs at a good distance, and the owl can also be used to speed you up or unlock doors with keys that you found and things like that. You can have two powers equipped at any one time and cycle between them with the select button, but to be honest, I don't see why you can't just cycle between them all with the select button, but it's no big deal really. The dungeons are more puzzle focused, being a lot like the Zelda ones. Most of the time all you need to do is kill every enemy for the doors to open or a key to appear, but sometimes there'll be buttons or other puzzles to muck about with. None of the puzzles I found were too complex, but this meant that the game kept a decent pace and my interest was never really waned. Also, when you die you're given a password and also have the option to continue from where you left off without losing your stuff, which is nice. The graphics are decent enough, there's a nice variety in the enemies, with new ones appearing quite regularly, and I like the different worlds and bosses. I really did have a great time playing this one, and I would say that it's easily my favourite of all the games in this video, and definitely one that I highly recommend. This game is called Yun and is by the Mojon twins. You play as Yun, a sexy young woman who they made sure to give nipples, which is handy. Anyway, Yun runs a demonic restaurant and is running out of ingredients, so she does what any devil lady does. She sets out into the land to collect as many monsters as she can to be used as ingredients for her delicious delicacies. So the game kind of plays like a cross between Mario and Bubble Bobble. Here you explore a large open world that's full of monsters and tricky platforming sections. You need to make your way through the levels, doing your best not to get hit by enemies or landing on spikes or lava and things like that, while capturing the enemies. This is done Bubble Bobble style by shooting a bubble at them which captures them. Then they're trapped for a few seconds, in which time you need to touch them, which I guess teleports them to your restaurant. There's only 3 levels, but they're actually very large open world sort of affairs. You need to explore every nook and cranny to find the enemies that you need. You're told at the bottom of the screen just how many there are to beat the stage. But getting around isn't easy and you'll need to learn the layout of the stages. You can exit most screens in any direction, and unless there's something physically blocking the edge of a screen, you can almost always go that way, so make sure you platform around as much as you can, as it is easy to miss an exit. Some areas are locked, so you'll need to find keys to unlock doors. Keys can only be used once, and sometimes there's alternate routes into the locked areas, so make sure you use the keys when you really need to. As well as collecting enemies, you can also use your bubbles as platforms. They automatically float upwards, so if you shoot at one and jump on it, then you can use them to reach high areas. This is a skill you want to learn quickly as it comes in really handy. But that brings me on to my biggest problem with the game, which are the controls. Now, they're not terrible, but they are very floaty and sometimes a little unresponsive and slippery, which does make it sound like they're terrible because those are literally the 3 things you don't want them to be. But basically it makes precise platforming very tough as you miss edges easily or slip off of things and have a bit of a weird momentum. It makes the game trickier than it needs to be. But having said that, I do still think it's a fun game to play. Now, I will say that I'm not really a massive fan in general of these types of games where you've got to explore and collect a certain number of things. They always give me odd flashbacks back to the old Ocean games on the Super Nintendo, which is never a good thing. But I do like the aesthetic and the things going on in this one. It doesn't look particularly impressive though, and actually reminds me more of a Commodore 64 game than a NES game, but it works well enough. If you like these types of games, then it would be a good one to check out. I don't really like them, but I still had fun actually. Plus, it's free and definitely worth playing for that price. Next up is Russian Roulette, which is exactly that. There's no story or really any gameplay to speak of here. It's literally just a game of Russian roulette, which, if you aren't familiar with, is basically a very high-risk game where one bullet is loaded into a gun. Then you and your opponent take it in turns to point the gun at yourself and pull the trigger. The gun has a 1 in 6 chance of going off, and you basically just need to see how long you can last against multiple opponents. There's no skill involved, just pure luck. The gun spins, you press the button to shoot. If you survive, you go on to the next round. If you die, you start from the beginning. Other than pressing a button to shoot, all you can do is press up and down on the D-pad to change your character's expression. There's 2 game modes, A and B. The difference here is that mode B sees 3 bullets being loaded into the gun rather than just 1. And honestly, that's it. There's nothing else to the game. When I first played it, I got really far, beating the existing high score. But then I started recording and I lost almost every round. But then again, it's random, so it's not like there's anything I could have done about that. It's just all very pointless. Unless I'm missing something here, there really is no reason to play this. There are some nice nods to the movie Platoon with some of the character designs. Other than that, there's really just no reason to bother playing this. Maybe I just don't get it, but yeah, not one that I recommend running out to play. It's not even worth playing in 2 players. You could literally just play this without a video game and having to download and load it onto your emulator. So don't bother. And finally, here is Zombie Calavera Prologue, another game from the Mojon twins. There is actually a needlessly long and complex story here which focuses on 2 characters, Santos and Maria. In a nutshell, Santos is a gravedigger who also has a shotgun, and Maria is his wife who was killed by a drug baron. The baron and his gang also killed a load of other people and basically got 500 souls that he needed to do some evil sort of ritual. You survive and make your way to Purgatory where you need to fight off the undead, collect enough spiritual energy to open the door to escape, and of course get your wife while you're at it. To get the spiritual energy, you need to collect crosses, which are hidden all around the large open landscape. It plays similarly to Yun in this respect. You explore the large maze-like map, figuring out how to get to all the crosses, some of which require you to enter screens at very precise spots, which can be fun and also annoying. You can run and jump, and the platforming here is actually quite good to control. It's a little floaty, but there's definitely worse games out there. There's also a ton of enemies all over the place. Thankfully, you've got a shotgun that has unlimited ammo, but what is a pain is that every shot you take makes you recoil backwards, and with the amount of small platforms in the game, this makes things really hard to do, and it's difficult to land accurately on anything, which I guess is kind of what they were aiming for. You have to be tactical with your shots. Enemies come in a few varieties, all of which are your classic kids' Halloween. There's bats, spiders, skeletons, and so on, as well as spikes all over the place to impale yourself on. You can take a good few hits before it's game over though, which is nice. You can also play as Maria, which is a nice touch. The gameplay is largely the same, you still need to find the crosses to escape Purgatory, but Maria doesn't have a gun. Instead, she has a floaty jump, which makes it easier to jump over enemies and reach platforms much further away. I actually prefer playing as Maria, as I don't really like the knockback with the shotgun. Another cool ability that both of the characters have is that if you stand still near some foliage, you'll actually hide and enemies won't spot you. If they touch you, you'll still take damage, but if they don't see you, they won't chase you. It's just a shame here that the map is pretty confusing to get around. People smarter than me, which is most people, likely won't have half the problems I did with getting around the level, but I've never been good with mazes, and the fact that there's no map or indicator for where you need to go meant that I was running around aimlessly for a lot of my game time. Graphics wise, I actually really like how it looks. It's got a cool art style where everything's a silhouette. It's another game that would look more at home on a Commodore 64, but from what I can tell it was actually originally a more recent release for some of the older computer systems, which would explain that. The gameplay is fun though, and although I did find it a little annoying, this is one that I would definitely play again. So there you go, a very random selection of NES Homebrew games. I really did have a good time playing these, and we'll be looking at more in the future, so be sure to let me know some of your favourites so I can include them next time. On screen now you can see where you can follow me, so why not do so? I've got loads of great content for everyone to enjoy. And now, what's there for me to say is thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.